To another edition of This Day in African American Baseball History. This is Phil Dixon, and I'm coming to you live again tonight. And of course, my program is done nightly if I can get to it. I still do a lot of speaking engagements and things like that. But tonight I'm coming to you because I'm going to talk about things that happened on October 19th. Of course, today is October 19th, 2025. And so we're going to look back at some things that happened on this date through the ages. And I'm going to give you actually a little commentary based on maybe something I know about that event or people connected to that event or something that I can relate to. All right. So let's jump right in here. Now, one thing I know Shani Otani had a great game the other night going into the World Series. And so I'm getting lots of people who've been asking me, do I know of anybody in the Negro Leagues who actually hit 3 home runs and maybe pitched and that kind of thing? And I did offer up something about Harry Burns, but it was only 2 home runs. But of course, he pitched, and Burns did this many times. But I did talk about a game that happened October 8th, 1915, and that's when Wilbur Bullet Rogan hit 3 home runs and a double in 4 at-bats in a 13-1 win versus the St. Louis University team in Honolulu, Hawaii, at the Honolulu Athletic Field. And now that first home run was the initial offering, first inning, and it was hit into right field. And home run number 2 was a 5th-inning blast to right field again. And in the 8th, Rogan's home run cleared the entire park. This guy was a great hitter, Bullet Rogan, and so was Harry Burns. So I'm going to dig deeper and try to see if I can't find more related to African American pitchers who might have hit 3 home runs in a game. The interesting thing was if you hit home runs at that time, it kind of was pretty rare. Now, I tell you what, over in St. Louis and Detroit, that's where I need to look because those parks were custom made for home run hitters. And if you're going to find maybe a home run hitter, that might be a good place to look, a good place to start. So I'm going to be digging into that a little bit more and see what I can find. So anyway, that is a conversation that's going on online right now. And if you want to check it out, just Google my name, or I think it's on it's one of the Negro League sites. So I'll have to go and dig that out. But just know that conversation is going on, and probably many people are having this conversation. But we wanted to enlighten you on some of the things that happen in black baseball. All right. So let's go. That was event happened in November 8th, and that was in 1915. So now let's go to October 19th. All right. So October 19, 1931, shortstop Newt Allen collected 3 hits and stole 3 bases in the Kansas City Monarchs' 8-0 win over the Mexican Nationals at San Antonio's League Park. Newt Allen knew him. I did know Newt Allen. When Newt Allen passed away, I wrote a long story in the Kansas City Call, and I had taken a bunch of conversations that we had, and I put those all into one article. If you can get that article from when he passed away, I think it was in the 80s. It was in the 80s. I can't remember exactly what year. I have to go and dig it out myself. I do have copies of that article. But I wrote some extensive things about him, and we had lots of conversations over the years. He lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and he lived on Park. And actually, my wife has a good friend who grew up in the same apartment that he was living in. So not only did I get the perspective talking to him, I got perspective from someone who actually grew up around him. And Newt Allen was a tremendous player. He was a guy, I think if you've been following me, I've talked about it before. He could stand on the center field wall and throw a ball all the way home on the fly and actually hit the backstop at most parks. And this guy was a second baseman. So Newton Henry Allen was his name. I actually knew his wife Mary and talked to Mary, and then I knew his son real well too. His son was a pastor here in Kansas City, Missouri, back in the 80s. Of course, all these people passed away now, and I'm here to tell their stories. Newt came to Kansas City, and I'll tell you why he came to Kansas City. Interesting story. And Newt told me this story, and you can find it. Probably somebody's seen my article and has rewritten this information. But he had an aunt that lived in Kansas City. He was originally in Austin, Texas, with his family, and they had they had a large family. So his aunt's son passed away, and so Newt was about the same age. So they sent him up here in the summer to stay with her, to get her through this difficult period of losing her son. Well, how about this? He never went back home. He became her son, and he ended up growing up in Kansas City, went to Addicks, went to Lincoln High School. Addicks, the building's still there. Lincoln High School is still there. That same high school Ruth Curry went to. And he started playing in the Packing House League for Swift. And that's how he got his start. He ended up in Omaha with the Omaha Federals. And then J.L. Wilkinson signed him to the All-Nation team. I think it was about 1922. But anyway, the rest is history. He comes up to the Negro National League and plays through those years, just a great second baseman. When Dobie Moore got injured in 1926, he ended up switching to shortstop. He was just as good as shortstop, had the great arm. And then he ended up sticking around, going back to second base, and as in the 1940s. So this guy had a long, distinguished career in baseball. So 1931, guys, he's hitting the cover off the ball. Now, if you look at the Cooperstown, I don't think there's a second baseman, a African-American second baseman from the Negro Leagues currently enshrined in Cooperstown. Correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody knows the answer to that. Now, I would tell you there's some people that should be given great consideration, and one of them is George Scales. This guy could do it all as well. Became a great manager, managed in Puerto Rico. And Newt Allen would be another one. And so those are a couple of guys I like to talk about. So anyway, that's October 1931, when Newt Allen performed these feats. And so what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to take this broadcast, and I'm going to go and I always talk about some comings and some goings. And so the comings are people who are born on this date, and the goings are people who passed away. So we got two comings that we're going to talk about today. And then I'm going to do one going that's kind of interesting, because that person was born in October and then passed away in October. So the first one is a guy named Sonny Harris, an outfielder for the 1937 Cincinnati Tigers, is born in Kent, Alabama. And he was born October 19, 1914. Interesting thing about Sonny Harris, I remember I wanted to interview Roy Partlow. And Roy Partlow is the guy who came up with Jackie Robinson. If you remember, there were two players at Montreal with Jackie Robinson, and one of them was Roy Partlow. And I wanted to interview Partlow. When I called him, I don't know how I got his number. It's been a number of years ago. But I got his number, and I called him, and he was pretty standoffish. He didn't really want to do an interview, and he just felt it was a waste of time. He had been treated so poorly by guys who were writing about his career that he didn't really want to talk. But I remember I began talking to him about the 1937 Cincinnati Tigers, and one of the names I mentioned was Sonny Harris, right? And that made him get engaged. And so when I started talking about the Cincinnati Tigers, Sonny Harris, and a bunch of other guys on that team, he came alive. And then we began to have conversations, and we had many conversations right up to the time he passed away. And of course, most people know that he came up with Jackie Robinson. Interesting thing, when he was at Montreal, I remember Roy telling me that the manager, Clay Hopper, would never talk to him. And he would go to Jackie Robinson, he'd say, ask Roy if he wants to pitch today. Never talk to him. And there was many other stories that he told me. Now, this guy was a good hitting pitcher too for the Homestead Grays. You might find a game where he had 3 home runs, but good hitting pitcher, good hitting pitcher. This guy had the ability to lead the league in pitching, and then in some category, and then turn around and lead the league in batting average. He was just that good. So that was Roy Partlow. And so I had the honor of featuring him on a baseball card. This is a card that came out, and if you can see it there, it was Dixon's Negro League Greats, came out in 1987. And I was featuring Roy Partlow. The interesting thing was, Partlow never got a chance to see that card. He ended up passing away on April 19th, 1987, and the set came out in 1987. And somewhere in my collection, I do have his permission, the permission slip that I sent out in order to put certain players in the set. And so he signed that, but he never actually saw the card. What's interesting about this picture here, if you look here, you see he's been lifted up by the audience, and that's how it was. But now, if you go to Kadir Nelson's book, he has this picture, and it was in one of my books, the full picture, and he took the same picture and changed it in his book, and I think he put Willard Brown is the guy they're lifting up, but it was really Roy Partlow that they were lifting up. So the name of his book is We Are the Ship. And so if you find that book, take a look at that picture. It's a painting by Kadir Nelson. So that was a little bit on Sonny Sweets Harris. I didn't give you much on Sonny Sweets Harris, but Partlow gave me a lot. And he did talk about all his teammates on the team. Okay, and then let's go to another coming. This is October 19, 1937. And this is what it says. This is what I've written. Walt Franklin Bond is born in Denmark, Tennessee. And Bond appeared in 365 games in 6 years of American and National League play. And he passed away from leukemia in 1967. Played for Cleveland, Houston, and Minnesota. And he also began his career with Ted Raspberry, City Monarchs in the late 50s. And if I'm correct, because I did have his baseball cards, this guy was about 6'7". And when they talk, I think a few weeks ago, I did a broadcast and somebody was trying to figure out who were some of the tallest ball players who were in the Negro Leagues or major leagues. And of course, I mentioned Huck Ryle was one. There was another guy almost 7 feet who played for the Atlanta Black Crackers in 1938 also. So there were some pretty tall guys, and those guys are massive. If you go back to the 30s and the 40s, to have a guy 6'7" is incredible. But Walter Bond was also one of those very tall players, and had caught leukemia and didn't survive. But now I think, for some reason I know this, but I have to go back and check in my records, and I don't know how I know this, but I think he was originally scouted by John Donaldson. But John Donaldson was scouting for the White Sox, so I'm not sure how he ended up being with Cleveland. But yeah, Walt Bond, and you can find him on baseball cards all over the place, especially playing with the Houston Colt 45s in Minnesota. Great player. Didn't get a lot of time, 365 games, but he would have been there a lot longer had he not passed away from leukemia. Okay, and the last one I want to talk about, somebody who was born on this day. He was born October 19th, 1943. October 19, 1943. And he passed away October, let's see, I think it was October 13th, if I'm correct. October 13th was just probably a week ago, 2025. I don't know if you know who that was, but I'll tell you who it was. Sandy Alomar, Santos Alomar, Sandy. And he was born in Puerto Rico, of course, Salinas, Puerto Rico. And he led the American League with 689 at-bats in 1971 as a member of the California Angels. Of course, he passed away. This guy was a switch hitter who fielded right-handed, so that's why he's at second base. Interesting thing, man, I used to get his card all the time. He was not one of the most desired cards you want to get sitting in Kansas City, getting Sandy Alomar. Certain players you get, when you're collecting baseball cards, you get a lot of the same guy over and over again. So he was one that I seemed like I just got every year. I would get Sandy Alomar. I don't know how that happened, but I knew his name very well. Of course, he lived long enough to have 2 sons that played in the major leagues and one of them is in the Hall of Fame. So you probably know about the two sons, Sandy Alomar Jr., who was a catcher, and the Hall of Fame second baseman, Roberto Alomar, who was enshrined in Cooperstown in 2011. Interesting thing about the younger son, he's actually banned from baseball, and his number that was retired in Cleveland has been taken down because they said he harassed some front office lady there with the team. So hopefully maybe that someday that'll be restored and that history repaired. So anyway, that kind of does it for me tonight. I'm going to get out of here in about 16 minutes, 16 and a half minutes here. I do want to thank everybody for joining. And again, my name is Phil Dixon, and I do a version of This Day in African American Baseball History. Today we're talking about October 19th, things that happened on October 19th. Now, you want to join me tomorrow because, man, I have some really good stuff. And I'm loaded up with stuff for October 20th. Now, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to keep and what I'm not going to use maybe this year. Maybe I'll use it next year because I have just too many facts. And I usually don't like to run my broadcast past 20 minutes. So if you're interested and you like what I'm doing here, be sure and go to that bell and hit subscribe and then share. Share it. If you're a baseball fan, share it with some other people. We're getting ready to start the World Series here. So I'm going to be doing quite a bit here as we get into the World Series because I know a lot of people will be thinking baseball as we close out the 2025 season. So my goal is by the end of the month to get 300 subscribers. I'm pretty new at this. This is going in my third month. So I'm shooting for 300 subscribers. And guys, you want to help me along, please do that if you're getting something good from this content. And I'm going to actually, who knows, I might just watch the World Series game and give you my own commentary. I was a baseball coach for 35 years, and of course I have a historic perspective as well. So thank you everyone for joining in tonight. And this is Phil Dixon, and this is This Day in African American Baseball History. Thank you for joining, and until we meet again, you have a nice day and play ball.